question for you guys. Have you ever consciously taken on a practice where you just allow things to be? Just let it be. And if yes, could you reflect on what that meant to you? What does that mean if you are currently doing that? And whether or not it was successful. I guess that I am measuring success as the ability to maintain that practice. I'm not necessarily measuring the success as fully allowing things to be. This is a slight difference. And it's a recognition of the studentship that we are in as just people, as human beings, in relation to ourselves, our mind, and this nature, this universe that we're a part of. So for me, a measurement of success is the ability to maintain the practice. And that's maybe number one. Number two is discovering how to apply the practice. Because it's a tricky question. Can I let something just be? Because there is a very specific way that we engage being. To hold, posture ourselves as a container, but at the exact same time allowing things to move through us effortlessly. Allowing things to move through means, yes, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, includes people, places, and things. So the cultivation of this practice enables us to hold something just right. So that then if it is authentically, truly time for that something to go, it is allowed. And when I say allowed, I mean that there is not this funny, strange attachment that occurs. And this is a very specific kind of attachment. It's the attachment that you know shouldn't really be there, but it's happening anyways. And if something, of course, is staying, then in this exercise, in this practice, it is meant to be with you at that time. So let's allow it just to be. So we're not grouping or categorizing into positive or negative, good or bad, because we all know, based upon our human experience, it's a mixture of, until further notice. It doesn't always need to be this rise and fall, good and bad experience. It does shift, it does lighten, it does become more constant and in line with something that is seeing both sides equally. And when we gain the ability to realize that we're able to see both sides equally, then that diffuses discomfort and suffering. As always, this is applied within the microcosm of our life called meditation. What is rising and falling is thought. What's attached to the thought is emotion. What's attached to the thought and emotion is usually people, places, and things. So in that act, we keep ourselves within the loop. In that act, we're actually learning how to hold ourselves in a very special way to give room for this ebbing and flowing of our learning, of our developing, of our inevitable growth, which quickens the more we're able to allow things to be. This enters into a possible challenge when you want a person to talk to you, but they're not. Or you no longer want that person to talk to you, but they still are. You want that thing to do something specifically, but it's not. You don't want that thing to do it anymore, but it still is. What this invokes is a pressure, as we know, yes? A very specific kind of pressure that moves you instinctively to do something. And generally, the action of instinct is not actually false. It's actually true. That's the blessing that we have, instinct, connected to the base of your experience, your existence. You can narrow the scope of your search by saying your root chakra, right there in your body, that energetic source that's connected to your nervous system and connected to your glandular system. So you have all your bases covered. But we must take the instinct, which is rising to act, and then dovetail it, feather through it with your intuition. The intuition is this higher form of mind that knows that this is a good idea to practice, that potentially even came up with the concept for you to then engage with. This intuition is connected again into your body, ajna, your sixth chakra. Again, relating clearly, directly to your nervous system and your glandular system. Nervous system means that this is the short burst sensations that you feel. Your endocrine system, the glands within the endocrine system, is excreting hormones, chemicals, which is now a long-term feeling that we get. So the two together start to work incredibly well. These short bursts of understanding and these long-term feelings of, yes, I'm going the right way. If one of these two are not in congruency, then that's when we have to slow the process down by half a second, long enough so that we can really observe what's happening in that moment in time, and then choose an appropriate response based upon the practice of allowing it just to simply be, with a very special kind of holding. What's connected to this instinct is emotion. It's a part of who we are. And that's what we want to develop to gain the ability to follow this allowance of being. Incorporating it into our days and nights in such a way that it is an embodied experience. So that literally we become the demonstration of that experience without needing to ever utter a word to a single person, unless you truly want to. But what that does is gives us an opportunity to ground into this experience 24 hours, 7 days a week. And I'm going to give you an example. Here it is. Do you notice it? allowing things just to be is another way of saying acceptance. But there's these fine lines, because if we lean too far into the ease of it all, then we sometimes lose the connection to what sometimes is considered to be important. We actually are not. We are not performing the practice as it is outlined, and that's the trickiness within it all. We can fall into, well, I don't care about everything because I'm allowing it all to be. And that's not the case. It's actually a very specific rigor involved that moves the awareness of the individual and the consciousness forward. So there's a balancing within it. And we find the ability to balance within the technical experience of your meditation, within the practice itself. Seeing thought, seeing emotion, seeing body sensation as it rises and falls, and witnessing what it is that you do as an act in order to observe freely without holding. And that exact posturing, which is connected to a sensation, you then want to elongate, just like how we're always talking about, extend throughout your entire day. And see if you can maintain that constant, rejoicing in the fact that anything which is constant is dynamic in nature. It moves like this. It's not stagnant. It is able to meet whatever circumstance or situation that it is in to the intensity level that is needed. We have to allow ourselves to be as much as we must allow all things to be. So the intensity level must move when it needs to move, must soften when it needs to soften. Your heart must increase at a certain point of the day if you're feeling nervous. Why? Because you're feeling nervous. It isn't a bad thing. Let that sucker pound out of your chest. Why? Because it won't last forever, especially if you're conscious of it. Because if you're aware of, ooh, my heart is pounding out of my chest, I should maybe do something about it because I don't like it. Then in that moment in time, the decision has been made, and you will then find the solution. So it won't last forever. In the practice of allowing things to be, everything obviously happens for a reason. It's obvious through the eyes of the observer, or else why else would it be happening? To say that something is out of place is to say that the universe and this intelligence that which makes up all of that is in our reality made a mistake. I find that truly challenging. Not because I want an ideal, but just because of the orchestration, the sophistication of what happens in nature. So there is a time for something to live, and then there's a time for something to dissolve and no longer be needed. Our ability to hold onto something lightly is enabling that to occur. Short of that, we're holding too tightly, potentially, to that which needs to go, and not giving enough energy, potentially, to that which needs to stay. Why? On a root level, fear. You are afraid. You're afraid of losing. You're afraid of failing. You're afraid of being alone. You're afraid of not being good enough, which holds you in these patterns of clench. Which is not going against nature. It's actually in time with nature. What's unique about the human being, as we all know and are developing and understanding, is that we have the freedom to choose. Within the timeline of our development, we can say, yes, I'm ready now, or we can say, no, not yet. But just because we say, no, not yet, doesn't mean that something isn't already in motion and happening. It's just that we're taking the position of, no, I'm not ready yet. We still get dragged along, maybe even bumped along, a couple of things hitting you on the way. Until you come to a time where you can witness and recognize to a level where then you can trust your own process that you are already in, that you are born into. It's not going away. So to recognize that that potentially is a root, but like any root, there's then something on top. So there's soil, and there's so many things that go on top of the root, which is all of that which is important to you. Important to you that you act from. So the way that you speak, based upon the root. The way that you choose to sit, based upon the root. The friends that you wish to keep, based upon the root. The job that you wish to take on, based upon the root. So skillfully grounded within its depth that we don't often detect a potential root cause. And instead, we focus on the topical symptoms of the root. So if we follow the stream of thinking, which is revolving around the universal intelligence and the fact that it would be so incredibly challenging for it to make a mistake, then there must actually be reason and cause for that root to be there. So in that fact, we must allow it to be. But then what to do with it? Because potentially you've determined that it's no longer conducive or good for you, it doesn't work for you anymore. And this is an interesting thing, because this root is not you, it's not just me, it's actually everybody holds that same central vibration that we're working on. So now within that logic, it is not just you, it is not just me, but it is all working on that same puzzle piece. And the effort put forth, as we are continuously developing, by the individual is all that needs to occur. So your relationship to that which is challenging, which is making you squeeze too much, is what we want to look at and soften and hold and soften and hold and soften and hold until we find the perfect tension within our hands, within our body, within our mind, so that things may come and go. And that we're able to examine that root maturely, not identifying with it as being who we are, or because of all of these things that happened to me in the past, but rather objectively as something that has been talked about within psychology and within spirituality and within self-development for long enough by enough people that we can recognize it is not me. But it is a societal challenge. It is a planetary process that we're working through as an evolutionary practice. We are evolving. We are successfully moving within a revolution. One full circle back to an original point of being where we can see clearly. Not because we cannot see clearly now, but simply because that is what is happening. At this moment in time, we see as far as we can see, but from that height point, we then have the perspective that we need so that then we can see a larger aspect of what it means to be a human, what it means to be an individual, what it means to take on a task free of fear. But until that moment occurs, we have this piece that we're working on. It's not yours, it's not mine, it's not anyone in particular, it just is. So therefore we must allow it to be there. We must allow it to be. So your anger, your frustration, your sadness, your fear, all of the things that we tend to push away, we want to actually foster back in to this human experience. Imagine if someone kept pushing you away, how would you feel? When you had nowhere to go but the inside place. There's nowhere to go. You keep pushing it away, but it has to come back. You would feel alienated. You would probably feel frustrated, and you may even start to act out. So allowing it to be means that all of the parts that you feel are not significant are here with you, so therefore they are a part of your experience. Then how do you relate back to the fear in such a way that it has the freedom to develop along with you? Your awareness, your consciousness. So if the heart starts to pound, let it be that. And chances are very high that when you start to open your mouth or take on the task which you were supposed to do, the heart starts to decrease in its intensity. It doesn't keep it up forever. And each time it happens, we recognize how we entered into it and how we left. So that then as we slow down half a second before it actually occurs, we see that buffer zone of how, and then maybe we do something different, like take a deep breath, which softens our hold, our clenching, so we can allow that emotion to be. And we no longer mask it with funny language towards an individual or drinking alcohol before talking to that beautiful person. Whatever you feel you need in order to bypass the sensation. Because if we are able to allow our sensations to be, then we start to see the whole picture clearly for ourselves. Recognizing that that which is challenging is only there for a very short period of time. What is more constant, especially when you put yourself into a comfortable situation, is that which is positive. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. But that which is positive is more prevalent than that which is negative. So when we allow them to be, they start to mix, influencing each other in the right way. Just like nature, influencing each other in the right way. So that then there's times where the dominant is that which you really don't want to look at. And there's times where the dominant is that where you really love it to stay forever. And nature moves in that way. But then over time, what begins to happen is evolution takes its place, and what is truly no longer needed begins to fade away. But we've established within human consciousness that this root fear is no longer needed within the human psyche. As a collective, we understand this. So now, it's just a matter of good practice and time. Not alienating or discriminating against the parts that make up who you are. Accepting all for what is and allowing it to be. Any questions?
If you could expand on that a little bit, because when you said accepting it and knowing that all can be, that you're implying that we have the choice to control. And I'm under the impression that things just kind of open up and move. I don't see myself having control over anything.
Mm-hmm.
So the acceptance, right, is just a witnessing of your dance in the nature, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So do we the question then I guess would be, are you saying that we have control over things in nature too?
Mm-hmm.
You are saying that?
Yes.
Now that's kind of scary though, right? Because
Why?
if we have a young mind, like if I have, a whole collection of really razor sharp knives, like a whole collection of them, and I say to Sage, "Hey Sage, you can go play with those knives."
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's the same implication that if we don't have the maturity within our being, and we do have control of the outer interaction with nature, then we'll cause war or we'll cause famine or whatever.
Well, this is potentially true. And we already have all those things, war and famine.
I know.
The control of nature exists within your ability to decide. You are a part of nature. So the element of who you are is as embedded as every stream that flows into a river. So that decision that you make at that moment in time, whether it's a reaction from the instinctual place or a response from this intuitive place joined with the instinct, is control. Because in that it shifts the direction that
Right.
the environment or nature is taking as it flows through you.
I understand now. That's what yoga is.
Yes,
Our
and then
songs
this
are
further
controlled, yeah.
then begins to be an influence, because now we take this developing, maturing mind, and then we apply it to literally change the landscape of nature, or redirect streams, irrigation. All of these things is shifting nature. But because of the young mind, we do something and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Just like everything and anything. You pick something up and you're like, this is a really good idea, and then you realize, oh, it wasn't such a great idea. And then that's just simple learning.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take that, again, microcosm, and you expand it across the entire planet, then you have war. You have famine. You have oil tankers sinking to the bottom of the ocean. You have devastating holes in the earth to extract minerals,
Mm-hmm.
which seem like great ideas, and they might be, or they might be horrible ideas. But that's the larger arcing movement within nature.
Okay.
Species go extinct all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you're right. We do have control,
Mm-hmm.
and you've taught us that just in our practice of yoga,
Mm-hmm.
controlling the body, controlling the breath,
Mm-hmm. That's
controlling
right.
the mind in meditation.
So the word control is harsh,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes not necessarily lending clearly to the topic.
Mm-hmm.
So when we say control, we really mean that we're actually a part of the decision-making committee,
Mm-hmm. I get this.
which
now.
has an influence over one individual.
Mm-hmm. And this is different than the control from fear, because the control from fear is trying to inhibit the flow of the energy that's moving creatively throughout the universe.
The control, again, it's not a control even of fear because we're allowing it to be. So maybe better framed as friendship.
Okay, but there are friends of mine who are in very, very states of, they see future moments. And so in anticipation to future moments that have not happened and may never happen, they prepare their lives in this now moment.
Mm-hmm.
But in that preparation, they miss the opportunity to embrace the dance of life because they're so living in that future moment that doesn't come into existence.
Mm-hmm. I understand what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so this universal intelligence
Mm-hmm.
makes everything. Every planet, stars,
Mm-hmm.
water flowing, so exacting.
Tears. Everything.
So exacting. So then in that logic, pure logic, it would be very hard for there to be anything out of place. Incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
So your friend
Yeah.
who plans to the future and then rests in the fear as it's coming towards, that is a very special kind of learning for that person.
I see.
And they will eventually evolve through that.
Right.
Nothing is out of place.
So it's not control then, really.
It is control over your response, your reaction versus response to the environment as it is moving through you.
This is good.
Mm-hmm.
You really clarified for me. Thank you.
So you're very welcome.
I
So
get
then
this.
when we enter into a meditation, we're actually softening and silencing it all. So we can go to the very most subtle experiences of fear, the subtle experiences of joy, the subtle experience of grounding and strong, and all of it that we have on the most subtle. And in that way, we can actually develop proper friendship because it's not biting, it's not running, not moving. Everything is settled, everything is still. And then this interaction which occurs begins to resolve a lot of the challenges that we have with the emotion. So it's communication.
Mm-hmm.
It is actually relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So we are allowing things to be perfectly the way that they are.
Mm-hmm.
But within that, there's a very special task for you, a very special holding pattern. A pattern, just like the patterns of life, the patterns of nature. You are also that pattern.
Conscious patterns.
Conscious pattern that is holding the experience that you're having in such a way that it can flow through you.
Isn't that beautiful?
It's very beautiful.
Wow.
And the better we're acquainted and able to do that, the quicker evolution happens because it's happening anyways.
Mhm.
So if we say no, we clamp down, but that doesn't mean it stops. It means that now we're hitting every single bump and getting branches in the face.
Mhm.
But if we open up, we clear the way and we just simply go. But we feel the sensation. We don't like it. We sit in meditation, we're supposed to be peaceful and enjoying, but yet we're having a memory. I don't like it, so I open my eyes. So I twitch and I move. But that's not allowing something to be. To allow
Right.
something to be is just to rest into the sensation and be okay with it. And in the being okay, it runs its course. It cannot last forever. The only reason why something lasts forever is because you pick it up and you say, I want it here. And then it disappears and you're like, no, I want it here. I want it here. I want it here. So this is a choice that one makes. And that's what you have control over, is the decisions that you're making.
Yes, I agree with this wholeheartedly. Because the sattva I've been practicing with you and the wonderful instructors here has taught me so much about control of emotion, control of attitude, to the point where there's peace.
Mm-hmm.
Where, before I would get all riled up, and now it's like, oh, it's just what it is.
Ain't no thing.
Ain't no thing. So hopping on the sattva merry-go-round, it was really spinning fast in the beginning, but now it's almost in slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really been a very beautiful benefit to, I'm sure, everyone in this room.
Well, the good thing about the spin cycle is it gets rid of all the excess.
Right, in laundry. Gets rid of all that.
Mm-hmm.
I think you did a talk on that one time. I remember that. Yeah, you did. That's right, you did. I remember that now. All right, thank you so much, Rameen.
Thank you.
That really clarified.
Good, I'm really happy. Thank you. Any other last questions? About anything? Hi.
My question is about this letting go and having it come back and not being able to let go of something because of this always bringing it back into your life. And I guess I would like to understand more about a way of understanding why that letting go isn't able to happen. And you spoke a little bit about it. You mentioned fear and the root, but I was still sort of unsure. I guess I still have an unsure understanding of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, the ability or lack thereof to let go is based upon an individual. So we can categorize it as maybe having a root common, but then from that common root, it immediately goes into the experience of you. So we must turn the question back onto you, not to answer now, but to contemplate for yourself as to why it is that you keep bringing it back. And there's a distinct reason why. And a part of that is the potential enjoyment that you get from it, which sounds ludicrous. But there's something there that we enjoy. Not only enjoy, but we take comfort in. The second thing is the inability to feel discomfort. Even though that which you want to let go of creates so much discomfort, but it's a kind that you're used to. This other form of discomfort is that of disciplined action. Meaning that when you decide, no, I am no longer having that, I am no longer doing that, then at that moment in time, there's a sensation that starts to come. And that sensation is a bit jarring. It wiggles you a little bit as it streams through you, attempting for you to latch back onto that which you've just let go of. So in that moment in time, we want to slow it down so that we can observe and then respond to that in a supportive way, which means you're going to rest deeper into that sensation, which is cleaning you. It's cutting the ties. This is called tapas. It's the ability to rest into something that is uncomfortable, but you know is good for you. And that discomfort is actually cleaning you. It's cutting it all away. And we have to keep going back to that again and again and again.
And what about this letting go, being sure that it is being made with the right intention versus also maybe a sort of like intention for the wrong reason?
I believe that you know always the answer to that. And that you always can recognize where it's coming from. And if it is earnest, it's always from a good place. But what creates the questioning is doubt, which then roots back into fear. The fear of making the wrong choice, especially when it comes to relationships or job positions or big decisions like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So just simply trust, and it will lead you to the next, and always leaves you squeaky clean. They say tapas done correctly, meaning just simply abiding by that discomfort, renders the individual shiny and bright, luminous, you can see from the outside. And then once you really get good with it, you smell like sandalwood. Sweet spice. Any other questions? Ideally, we always remind ourselves that in the active state, meaning something that you can see with your mind, it can be resolved through meditation. Why? Because you're seeing it. And what meditation is doing is dissolving all that you see, dissolving all that you feel, dissolving all that you hear, and taking you to a place of stillness, a point where nothing is happening. And if we keep doing that again and again, allowing nature, the universe, to do its good work without holding, just simply being, then it will aid in your letting go of everything which is no longer needed, passively. How? Because you are aligning yourself and resting into accordance to nature and universal law. So that's void of man-made creation. It's tapping into the true flow of what makes you joyous and happy and makes sense, and no matter what's happening on the outside. We say, well, why do bad things keep happening? Because there's a scale of development. So just because you have seen and completed and moved through doesn't mean that the person next to you is complete yet. So the person next to you still has to experience that which was challenging. So if you turn that into 8 billion individuals on a scale of development, this is a lot of experiences that have to simultaneously occur in order to make the learning happen. So allowing it to be then flows into every single person sitting in the room, allowing them to go through their own process. You can support people all you want, but holding them in a way, a very special way, that there's no words for. I could create language to explain it, but it's exactly like this. Just like this, I'm practicing it right now. How can I hold myself in such a way that I can allow my spine to rest and be balanced, but strong? As though I'm sleeping, but awake. Dynamic relaxation. So then if I can posture myself again and again and again and again and again within the flow of intelligence which is instructing me, then I become very good at it. I'm learning efficiently, and then it will eventually become second nature, just like everything that you do that you no longer think about any longer. So that which is challenging you, if you allow yourself to engage with it, it will no longer bother you any longer because you've resolved it. You must keep resolving the challenge, which means you must keep developing your learning. And I do not see an end in sight. So it's better to become so incredibly skilled at it and comfortable with it than to resist. And this is the ease and the comfort that the ancients have been talking about for thousands of years. And then one day we will become the ancients, and they will say they have been talking about it for thousands of years, and they will probably still be talking about it until it's fully complete. Magic. Simple, ordinary, everyday magic that you perform on yourself. Any final questions? Let's sit. Allowing it to simply be in a very special way that makes room for comfort. And simply allow all that you are to rest into comfort. Allow the rhythms of your heart to be there. And feel how it pulses through the body. Allowing a flow of fluid to exist consciously within you. You can feel it in your mouth. It exists within the cell and around the cell. It is how we pass information. Through the experiences of the body. Allow yourself to feel a warmth at the center of the tissue of the body. And follow this warmth as it radiates from the center outwards to the edges of the skin. Allow yourself to feel a space which exists at the center of that tissue. Allow yourself to be with that space. Learning how to hold yourself, your body, in a very unique, special way to enable this space at the center of the tissue to be. while maintaining within your meditation, apply a slightly deeper breath. And notice the moment that you feel breath at the openings of your nasal passage. And just simply reside there. Allow your observation, your awareness to be in accordance to this very specific, special sensation that is entering inside of you. Allowing that to be, become aware of the passage and the sensation of breath as it exists there within that passage. The subtle shift that the sensation takes. Allow the awareness of breath now to be through the airway. Allow the awareness to be at the lungs and feel the sensation of expansion. Feel the sensation of expansion as it moves all the way through to the edges of your skin, passing through the space of the body. Observe how a sensation exists as the breath moves back towards the center. As you exhale, following the exact same pathway that you inhaled with. Notice a quality of space that is left behind the moment you begin to inhale, and a quality of space that is left behind the moment you begin to exhale. Observe how overwhelming the sensation is. And now once again soften your breathing to an absolute natural state. And be with the space which was cultivated by your breathing. Accept the positive influence that exists there, the subtle shift of your perception. Now once again engage with your breathing, taking a slightly deeper breath. And as you maintain this breathing, now bring your gaze into the space just there in front of you. And with a soft intensity, maintain the integrity of the space. How? Through a strengthening of your mind and its connection to the body. Its connection to the body and the body's senses. So we use all of our senses to engage with this quality of space to maintain its integrity. Keeping the eyes closed, soften the gaze. And now very slowly, gently allow the eyes to open. If we were to follow the same thread of intelligence, then that which occurred within your meditation at this moment in time was absolutely perfect, no matter what it was. And in that, we enable ourselves to evolve, coming to terms with everything that is a feeling inside that we may be keeping at bay. I'm not saying positive or negative. It could be something really positive that you're just holding there, not yet letting happen. All of it opens up and flows through. And then through our ability just to allow it all to be, the awareness, pure awareness, untinted by thought or preference, begins to shine through. And that awareness is discernment. That awareness is connected to a higher form of self that you ask questions to. It is the experience of absolute purity in the form of a gaze, peering into yourself. We should, over time, allow that to be. Thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Namaste.